these things.
Very nice.
There you go. It's good to have options, isn't it?
It is.
All right, we're recording and we're going in 3, 2, 1. This is the 8-9 combo. I am Brett McKay, and it's been great to be back for another great rugby chat with my co-host from literally the other side of the world. He's on the ground in Edinburgh, on the ground at St Andrews Golf Club, if you don't mind, the old course. Harry Jones, how much of this year's, next year's, and the following year's budget have you spent already?
How's it, Brett? Yeah, we are backfilling from 2026 at this point. Your pension has been raided. The accountants told me it's so fine as we can do some retro auditing, checks and balances. I am on the old course. I actually scouted out several bunkers to do the pod from, but the wind was a little bit rough, as well as the dogs kept sniffing around. So I'm getting kicked out of there, and then now I'm in the actual library overlooking the road hole. And so if you hear a clattering, it's a ball hitting us or the repairs going on. Now, I've had a lovely time here in Edinburgh area. As you might know, I was able to meet Sir Nigel Owens, who was a comedy guest at a wonderful event for Tiny Changes and Lord's Taverners, where they use cricket for helping disadvantaged youth. Tiny Changes is a constellation of charities. And I've also used 2027's budget to bid in an auction. I might have raised my hand or scratched my ear or touched my nose, but we won something extremely exorbitant, but also for a good cause, which balanced out all the sin that I did on the other nights in Edinburgh, which I wrote about in family-friendly fashion in the Roar today, drops. But no, I learned to speak Shetland. I met some beautiful Vikings. I just had the most amazing time going from the top of Edinburgh, the very top, and then going all the way to the bottom, and then enjoyed Murrayfield very, very much. So, but Scotland is a country of skeptics. David Hume and such, and they're very metaphysical. And the try that was disallowed against the French was really typical of Scotland's plight. But in Murrayfield, they actually have a big screen, and they will tell you the reason for each whistle. And it's real time almost. So someone's actually typing in something, and they have like reason for scrum, and then it'll say unsuccessful maul, which I think is quite interesting because it's almost philosophical and like a tautology or something. And I go, what do you mean? I said it was a choke tackle, but I want to say choke tackle because it's also kind of proper in a strange way. So no, and so I on that theme, I was wondering about things, and I started thinking about what happened to that Englishman? So, the blitz defense of England was disappearing. What happened to other things that are English? And one thing was, remember that kid Charlie, that little boy Charlie, baby Charlie, that was in that viral video when we didn't know about the word viral, and then suddenly it was 130 million, 200. And that Charlie, that really hurts. Yes. Charlie, that really, really hurts, Charlie. Yeah. I decided to find that kid Charlie and what he did as a grown-up, and that was the origin of this episode today.
I don't know what that means, and if anyone wants me, I'll just be here in my office in Canberra, like always. It is episode 3 of the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast. Thanks for finding us under our new banner. And it's all thanks to the Sports Social Podcast Network. You may well have listened to us occasionally on the Roar Rugby Podcast over the last few years. So we say welcome back. And if you are completely new to the pod, we say welcome. And we obviously hope you stick around. We're on all the pod platforms, Spotify, Apple, all the others as well. We're on YouTube and their music varieties. We're on the last days of Google Podcasts, but also Amazon, Audible, iHeart, all of those, wherever you find your podcast. So please do like, follow, subscribe, rate and review and share. It all helps. It really all helps. Cheers and jeers. Well, I've got a jeers for you, Harry, for spending all our budget straight away. We start the pod the same way we have for a while, but just with a new name this year. Cheers and jeers. So what is your cheers, or have we had it already?
3 quick cheers. Jack Dempsey and Ben White, superior 8-9 combination. Yeah. Jack Crowley and Jameson Gibson Park, 8-9. I'm looking at 8-9s across the park now. A cheer for Edinburgh.
Ben Earl and Danny Kerr weren't terrible.
No, but Ben Earl's a little bit, well, we'll get into this, our guest, but Ben Earl's a little bit small to me as an 8 at the international level. Like, elusive, but not even that really, quick enough to stop Duhan van der Merwe in the flats, not big enough to just mow over people in the tights. I don't know about that, but yeah, true. A cheer for Edinburgh itself, that stone masterpiece, chiseled humor, cutting wit. very sequential boos. I love this town, Edinburgh. And then my final cheers from Murrayfield. Duan van der Merwe, having scored his third try, and is carded. And at that very moment in time, simultaneously is awarded the man of the match. He doesn't know that because he's not looking at the big screen. He's doing what Duhan always does. He's disgruntled because he always thinks he should have scored 6 tries and the tip tackle wasn't that bad. So he's coming off and the entire stadium of the West Side is standing, rising, and giving him a standing ovation forever, shaking the very roots upon which Murrayfield was built. And he is coming off thinking he just got carded and everyone is jumping on him. Unbelievable scenes for a guy who keeps doing unnecessary corner scoring flourishes by knocking over the flag for no apparent reason. But this man is on fire.
Any danger he could run around the post once or twice. Did you end up finding the answer to your question? Has anyone ever scored 3 tries and copped a yellow card in the same game?
Well, I'm hoping that our guest today could solve that.
We will put that.
But I doubt. I seriously doubt because of the vintage of cards.
It's got to be the fact that it's.
Yeah, it's difficult to score a hat trick.
Yeah. My jeers for you is also from the Six Nations, and it goes to Italian referee Andrea Piari, who around the hour mark of Ireland-Wales on Saturday in Dublin, he could be heard calling the replacement Irish lock, whose name escapes me just temporarily, back on side from ruck. And in that very moment, triggered Australian rugby fans all over again when, as clear as anything over the mic, he says, "Okay, we play." Immediately invoking memories of Matthew Renal and the now infamous Melbourne Bledisloe of 2022. And so to you, Andrea, I say, boo. It's far too soon for that.
The trauma is dripping out of your voice.
Just as
and what about that Italian fiasco where the French were charging down a penalty twice and had a water carrier right in line? I mean, retake 10 meters up. I don't know.
We'll get to that. Okay. But let's get on to eventually this week's guest, someone who we've not spoken to before, but have enjoyed his columns and his analysis for years. And with just 2 rounds of the Six Nations left, he is bound to provide some more wonderful insight. He joins us next. He joins us in just a second when we unmute him and when I find my lines. We've had another really interesting weekend of Six Nations rugby played, and some of the very best coverage of it you'll find authored by this week's guest, a former first-class cricketer for a brief period before moving into sports journalism about 15 years ago. He's been the senior rugby writer for the Telegraph since 2017. His play-by-play analyses of key moments in important games are always on point. Please welcome to the 8-9 combo, Charlie Morgan.
Hi, thanks very much. That first-class cricket reference is a bit of a burgle. Our university games were classed as first class, but it got me a Wikipedia page with a height of 6'2". So somebody.
And really I was going to reference this. I found a reference. Yeah, and the quote. I love the quote where it said, referencing that Wikipedia page, where you said it contained a vast overestimation of that.
yeah, massively. I'll take it though.
Absolutely.
And am I right, Charlie? Are you actually the Charlie, the little boy Charlie grown up now that was in the video where you were really hurting your brother?
Yeah. Who I am really is the Charlie that was that had Charlie Bit My Finger whispered into my ear at university on thousands and thousands of occasions. I'm not the main guy, the guy that was terrorized because of that video. And now, I know Brett, if you're not familiar with it, Brett, but it's now taken on new meaning for me because my 2 boys are 3 and 8 months, so they're right in the zone for a
yes, they are. We'll see. Yeah. You straight away, you're going to be in trouble with at home. You know, one of the kids, what's wrong? Charlie bit my finger.
Yeah.
So Charlie, tell us a little bit. You before the Calcutta Cup, you wrote an article. It sort of seems premonitional now, which is Scotland has become England's bogey team, but you analyzed why. And this is a feature of your articles for those who don't, and they must. You're a must-read, essential read for the how and the why. And you broke down exactly why you thought Scotland had become that. And then now you've got an article that just dropped talking about how that did. Kind of talk us through why you think Scotland's such a terrible matchup right now for England.
I think it's, well, now in this game, what was crystallised was how settled they are versus England. But that has loads of different strands to it. And while England are sort of fretting about they're in such a vice because they're fretting about their lack of cohesion, but they also don't want to complain too much about the state that Eddie Jones left them in. So they're also they're just sort of throwing their hands up and going, this is what happens when there isn't continuity in selection. And Scotland are showing what happens when there is continuity in selection, and then there is a balance too, not just across a backline, not even just across a pack. I glad you mentioned Jack Dempsey, because I thought Scotland's entire back five was awesome. Just a really complimentary blend of players and assets. But even they're 23, guys. So Elliot Miller-Mills, their replacement tight head, is Northampton's third tight head, I think.
Yeah, right.
But what Gregor Townsend has created is just this clarity. And he is doing what Steve Borthwick is striving to do, which is make the most out of individual player talents within this side. And that has just been apparent throughout this now 7 year stretch of just his dominance over England, which started in 2018 with quite maybe not, they feel like quite similar games. Someone like Duhan van der Merwe and Hugh Jones are carving through England. They're just a bit more crafty around the breakdown. They are more they're more assured around set piece than maybe they get credit for, and all of that just kind of seems like a really horrible blend for England, while England are themselves kind of in this neurotic kind of it's coincided with this kind of neurotic England are grasping for what they are, and people are telling them that they should go back to a power game, and they're going, but we don't really have any powerful players anymore. And so it's been a really, really interesting kind of just cross of trajectories.
The best thing you can say about Scotland at the moment is that you don't really notice players until they're doing something that's just absolutely brilliant. And you mentioned Jack Dempsey. I reckon I didn't notice him properly until about an hour into the game, and then I realised he'd been everywhere, of course, but he just did something in that moment, and his name stuck out in commentary. And Sione Tuipulotu is the same. He made that little line break about half an hour, maybe 25 minutes in, and I hadn't seen much of him at that point. But again, you realise he's actually been the focal point of that Scotland attack whenever they shifted width. And he is just, for a guy who couldn't quite nail down a starting spot in Super Rugby in Melbourne for a lot, and he's a Melbourne boy for all intents and purposes. And he's gone to Scotland, and he is a genuinely world-class number 12 now, and he was brilliant.
I love it when the clarity of a team, or however they're empowering players, whether it's clarity, whether it's the environment, and just how that fit, where they become sort of, not just when they become more than some of their individual parts, but where those individuals that have been slight underdogs or whatever elsewhere really shine, and they're competing on a plane with players who are much more lauded. So what shone through to me sort of watching was Grant Gilchrist, who sort of fairly, big sort of burly at second row, wouldn't be super athletic as a line-out jumper, although he dovetailed with Scott Cummins, who is. You're going, oh, Danny Care's having a bit of a tough day getting the ball away, either from exits or just when England are seeming like they get a bit of momentum in phase play. Watch it back. Oh yeah, Grant Gilchrist has counteracted the exact right time to get an England player falling back towards Danny Care, and then it's messy. And that's exactly what I mean. Is just there's a collective intelligence and intuition about them, which is a lot to do with really good coaching, and makes them really fun to watch.
It seemed like the dominoes falling on the counter rucks seemed well timed. Even the charge downs that didn't work seemed to be in the heads of the English players, and I was struck by how chaos afflicted England, and they would just go hoof the ball, whereas Scotland, a charge down happens and they take it as, oh, fractured field, let's capitalize. That falls into your thesis then of the cohesive team, right? Everyone is switch on, get it to the quickest player or get it to space.
So Duhan van der, I'm losing count of them now, but Duhan van der Merwe's third try was exactly that. So England lose the line out, but their press works quite nicely. They get to Russell, there's a charge down. The ball falls to Cameron Redpath, who's just come on for Sione Tuipulotu. So you're going, is he going to settle into this game? No, he's danced through 3-4 players, 40 metres. England do well to scramble, but Van der Merwe has migrated to the touchline. Finn Russell knows exactly where he's going to be, feeds the space straight away for broken field. Poor Maro Itoje. I mean, he's probably a podcast in himself, Maro, but he's kind of, I feel like he's the flack he got for even regressing closer to the mean was a bit unwarranted. He was still playing very well.
He was.
He still had moments on Saturday, and yet Maro's not the same. Bin him, but anyway, so he's the edge defender, which is kind of England are in strife, and it's
right. That's not a good matchup. And Duan sticks on the touchline or over the touchline for much of the game. If you're at they're live, you can see more of the back three, and I was struck with how clear Scotland was on their back three, where you stand, what you do in a scenario. Whereas George Ford was turning around, giving directions to Furbank. To Daly. Daly is very active. I just kept wondering this, Charlie, and maybe it's like the quintessential question under the question is, does England have the personnel to do what the Felix needs? The Felix requires very swivelly cutback defenders. Even my Pimpy was not swivelly enough. It had to be Arendse, Willemse, and Colby at the end to be able to track back and run all match long without lactic acid. Hips don't lie. Can Elliot Daly and George Furbank do that? They're not hip hop dancers,
I'd love to be described as swivelly just once by somebody. It's a great question, and it is at the heart of what. So there's probably unrest within among England fans now, and it is a hangover from Eddie Jones, but they can't say it's a hangover from Eddie Jones because everybody's tired of saying that it's a hangover from Eddie Jones. But it's related to how this build. So and the one sort of thing you'll get leveled at you if you sort of bring this up is that Steve Borthwick's had 3 campaigns now, but they've sort of been 3 separate campaigns. In that one was a Six Nations where he was thrust in and he had very little time. Next was the
2 weeks to prepare.
Next was the World Cup, which is always seen to be, this is when England level the playing field because they finally got time together. Now, what he did during that period was beast them during the warm-up, so they got no goodwill during the warm-ups. They lost to Fiji because they were knackered all the time. Then at the World Cup, what he did with his selection was go all out and experience and the players that he had available now, because I think he knew that he had to get some goodwill with results immediately at the tournament. Now, what's happened since then is you've lost a hell of a lot of caps. So Ben Youngs, Johnny May, Owen Farrell, Courtney Laws. Now, maybe only those last 2 were going to play in this Six Nations, but it's a lot of IP to lose.
So it's another 200 plus test caps, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a 3rd new start. But nobody wants to hear it. So get back to the question on. So get back to the question on the players and whether the system fits them. I think eventually you'll see players in that system that fits it. And a good example of somebody that does down to a T. He looks swivelly. He looks explosive. Is Manuel Feweboto, who came on late on and immediately gave England a dynamism and an energy that they were lacking.
I will note here, though, Brett, it's a hyphenated player, and Brett has a particular peeve about hyphenated players.
As someone who keeps a lot of spreadsheets with names in them, Charlie, I'm just telling you that hyphenated player names are not friendly for column width.
Have you just got to? But you don't have the hyphen, do you? I imagine you just got to go capital letter in the middle of the name.
Sometimes you've got to go small fonts.
Yeah.
This is the level of issue we have.
What a nightmare.
Well, and interesting because I think they came out post-match and Steve Borthwick said he's going to launch a UHR, which is the Unbelievably Honest Review. So what would it be? I mean, is that something he's saying that the coaching was off, the game plan was off, or is he going to be, strict on, drop balls, turnovers, and all that?
It's pretty close to a type of milk, isn't it? But no, it's kind of
different sort of heat treatment, I think. It'll be both. He mentioned system errors and individual errors, and you never know. I don't know what would be more painful, because I guess sometimes you can go. Somebody said to me that one way to look at that England-Scotland game was that Scotland scored 2 tries in transition, 1 try with directly from first phase. Is that easy to write off because you're not making those mistakes often, or when you're making those mistakes more regularly, is it even more worrying?
And do you go, well, there's no way we're going to make 25 handling errors in a game again? Or is there, if you spend time on that and you're just worried about how your defence and your set piece and your kicking game is, which is what England seem to be. We don't know how they're devoting their time in training, but it does seem like that's more of a focus for them. And maybe that's Amelia's fault.
It becomes the classic downward spiral though, doesn't it? If Scotland can become, and they are becoming, this team that is just deadly accurate from turnover, they're becoming, dare I say it, New Zealand like, Harry. But if they're this team that will just punish you on turnover, then any team, never mind England, any team's going to go into a game against Scotland going, can't make mistakes. Oh crap, we've made a mistake, and there's a try gone. And all the focus in the world could be, we can't make mistakes against Scotland because they'll score against us. And then as soon as they make one, bang, try.
Because they have game breakers. You could look on the field in England and look for the game breakers. You couldn't find one that could run away from somebody. Johnny May would be the last time I saw someone in England just take something out of nothing. And so on the aerial games, Charlie, it looked like even down 14, England was box kicking. And that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it led to the try in a way. But that was the way they were trying to get a quick ball. But then you have to have aerial artists. You have people who can go and get it. Freddie's not in, so how do you see that Furbank selection? Did it backfire, or what do you think?
I was excited by it before the game because I thought if it went really well, and it looked like it was going to go really well, they scored a really nice first phase.
Yeah, the first one.
First phase. Then it gives England the scope to add in those game breakers on the wing. What with Freddie Stewart at fullback, super strength under the high ball, but you do have to compromise for maybe that lack of kind of conviction as a playmaker elsewhere in the back line, which is why Elliot Daly is there. Now, what England have at the minute is, so we always say about this way Steve Borthwick is setting up the side, when it's bad, it's horrid. So when they're box kicking and they're not winning those box kicks back, it looks awful and it gets booed, as it has been.
As will happen.
As could happen, when they're desperate to kind of engage Twickenham, that could happen if that sort of thing is going on. The problem that they have there, I think their wingers have got better in the air. Freeman looks good there, Daly's looks good there, but as Harry rightly says, if they're the guys going up and winning the loose ball, who's the ball going to make the most of those fractured situations? There isn't. That's where they've got to get the balance. And I think that is part of the point that I actually didn't get around to making because I was so meandering in the swivelly bit is that it's going to be, I think there are experienced players there like Elliot Daly to ease this game plan in. And then I think eventually when others around them have experience, like so one day they might have a settled centre partnership, for instance, and then you can bring in a game breaker there who suits it. So, I mean, see what you think about it. Imagine you might not be familiar with all of these players, but if a backline for me that had Marchant at 13, Faye Bosa at 14, Arundel at 11, Quirk at 9, that feels like it would really suit a Felix Jones system, but it's... But there's time off. Those players have got to stay fit. Those players have got to get to that game. So it's all theoretical at the minute, and that is why justifiably supporters are a bit.
Yeah. On the other hand, it's in the last 10 matches. It's only 2 losses, right? I mean, it's some countries would die for this record. And it's interesting when Rossi came on
Australia.
Yeah, right. When Rossi first came to Western Province, when Jaco Johan took over the box, the attack looked flat because the 13, 14, 11, 15 were exhausted. They are playing like cornerbacks in the NFL mostly, and then they have brief moments of runaway, intercept almost tries. So they were ragged. Is that what's happening to England in a way when they finally get the ball in some kind of space, except for the first 20 minutes? They just didn't have the gas.
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I know that they have to. I don't know whether it's such a basic point that either people don't want to say it out loud or just know that they'll sort of be laughed if they get asked that. But like just the off the ball running is people are just like, oh well, they almost like separate the running that you've got to do in defence and go, well, he's unfit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, think about the sequences of play. And I'm going to butcher his second name here, which is terrible, but I spoke to Umar Muniem, who's the his probably second name isn't pronounced like that, but he's the Exeter defence coach, and he coached with Jacques Nienaber at the Stormers in 2007, and he's brought that system into Exeter. And I was saying, I sort of did a piece with him last week and said, what does that look like in pre-season? And he's just like, yeah, well, players are fit at Exeter. So Henry doing all that. And I think if you're not used to that, it's so difficult to implement in the Six Nations build up. And yeah, you're right. You'd be absolutely gassed. And you'd be like, and the idea is what's just I guess the last point for me to make on this is the idea is of this blitz defense to get the ball back quickly. England do they have the jackalers to get the ball back quickly on top of it?
Yes. Which is
a problem. But against Wales, they were defending for 20 phases, and at the end, Ben Earl sort of in his post match, he was going, "Oh yeah, me and Fordy were joking about how we're meant to get the ball back quickly for this defense." And I remember thinking, yeah, I mean, if you don't, you're going to be shattered for good guys running shuttles in the 13 channel.
But that very point is why I'm quite sure Harry Ben Earls is playing 8 to make sure they have got that bit of extra on ball.
I think that's true. Just watching at the actual grounds, I was watching the breakdown very closely, and it looked like it was blunt force trauma on the English side in that route, and Earl was smashing into rucks. I mean, really, like Underhill was almost eyes closed, just smashing into things. Richie, Darge, and Dempsey Richie and Darge particularly were playing very crafty at the breakdown. I mean, picking the right side away from the ref. I ran into really good. Jamie Ritchie in the morning, and his face was just cut up. And I said, "How was it?" He goes, "There were a lot of extras." So that was a serious breakdown clash, Charlie. And it looked like it was going England's way, and then it looked like it wasn't. And I almost felt like we look at the midfield and everything, but that breakdown was brutal, and the ref let it all go.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Well, Andrew Brace is kind of renowned for that. So he's renowned for sort of giving defensive sides a bit of rope, and you don't want to be hanging around with the ball sort of aimlessly with Andrew Brace, which might have played into that box kicking stuff at the end from England. But I thought Underhill, I wouldn't have regarded him as a massively prolific jackler, but he got a couple, didn't he? But Richie is just a menace, and Darge just that post tackle stuff where players sort of carriers are nearly at the floor, and he'll just almost deadlift them for half a second. It's so annoying because it's knackering the running lines of the nines, knackering the cadence of the pods, and then I just can imagine sort of him getting pumped at the bottom of the rut, I don't know, face kind of split open, and then just pissing himself at how bad England's face shape looks.
Yeah, it's a great point. Last question on this, because we've got so many other things we want to touch on. It still feels to me quite incredibly, and they've won 4 Calcutta Cups in a row. I think apart from Ireland, they're probably the form team of the Six Nations at the moment. It still feels like Scotland are being underestimated, and that, after what we saw on the weekend, that seems quite incredible to me. Surely that can't continue to be the case. Surely we're actually going to start recognising that Scotland are a very, very good team right now.
It's so difficult, and it's so what I love about the Six Nations, as from the sort of point of view of somebody whose mum was born in Scotland, dad grew up in Wales, grandma's Irish, is that it really kind of plays into sort of the national neuroses quite nicely. So the English at the minute should be really respectful and quite nervous of what Scotland offer, but Irish fans probably don't rate them because Ireland show up really well against Scotland and have sort of bullied them and have this really funny but really ridiculous thing where every year they go, Scotland keep talking themselves up, and Scotland are going, we're not talking. They're going into the game almost apologetic about not having talked themselves up, and then they lose anyway. And then in the first game,
and then say, "See,
exactly. See, we're not good." And then Wales. So Wales, a scratch Wales team, go down 27-0, and then almost. It's really funny how I think if you were, and it's difficult for me, I guess, but to be really, really detached from it, you'd always think. I watch Scotland every year, and because I tend to cover England more, watch them against England mostly, and they just seem great. It seemed really well balanced, really intuitive side. And you think, yeah, why can't they? And I spoke a lot to Gregor Townsend before the World Cup, and was really, he was saying, you know, we've had this, our theme has been ambition, never go into our shells. When we're faced with a blitz defense, we're going to keep going and try and find those edges and find those seams. And then South Africa did an absolute job on them in Marseille, and Ireland, yeah, as I say, sort of bullied them. So it's tough, but it's so gutting. It's more gutting now that what happened at the end of that France game. And that's the other thing. You can find yourself getting really righteous about results that would be good for the tournament when that's just rubbish. Really. It wouldn't be if Scotland were kind of 3 from 3 now.
Yeah, and either way, the result of the Calcutta Cup was going to give us the drama we needed. So round 4 would have been England 3-0 versus Ireland 3-0 with a grudge match at Twickers. And this way around, the tournament lives until the final weekend, assuming that Scotland doesn't stub its toe against Italy. But Ireland, it is Ireland's prohibitive favorites. They're 21-point favorites against England in the round 4 now. What I would say is that I think this form of Scotland, this version of Scotland plays well against this version of Ireland, only in the sense that the 10s, now you have an actual edge. You have a veteran fly-off playmaker, Finn Russell, at the top of his game, and we're still waiting for that young fly-off moment for Ireland. And, it hasn't happened yet, but what if it did when the pressure came on? Other thing is, left wing against right wing, Duhan van der Merwe, Mac Hansen's out. You're going to have something there to run against. So on those 2 game breakers you have, and then you have the loose trio with Peter O'Mahony, not at the top of his game, playing against a really informed Scottish trio. So those are the only 3 hopes. Ireland should win, come on. But if there is going to be an upset, I would look for it in those 3. What do you think about the chances of Ireland stubbing their toe in round 5?
I thought they would lose the France game and then just look really muggy in a bar in Rome, watching that sort of just. And then they would do it. They were fantastic, and I just seem to, when the strength of their structures and their have made someone like Jack Crowley. He's clearly a very talented player with almost like a perfect degree of swagger about him. So he made a couple of mistakes early on in that France game, and he kept coming, and he grew into it, looked more assured, then ran the show against Italy and didn't care that he was missing kicks from poles. He was sort of, he pushed through despite that. Wales got under their skin a little bit, but they pulled through. I'm just what I'm saying to you is I'm wary of saying Scotland have a chance just because I've thought they've had a chance before. The Murrayfield,
the aforementioned talking ourselves up.
Yeah. Well, the Scotland against Ireland at Murrayfield was Ireland won 22-7, I think, but it was held up as this how adaptable are Ireland. They've got Josh van der Flier throwing into lineouts. They've got Cian Healy scrummaging at hooker. Yeah, you flip that around and you go, what a collection of brain farts it takes to lose to that. That's kind of what Scotland did. Is the pressure off maybe a little bit if it's away? I'm not sure. Weird psychological things like that tend to happen in the Six Nations too. And then, as you say, Italy on sort of buoyant after that draw with France, which they really could and should have won. That's going to be tricky too. But I hope so. I hope they really give it a crack, and I hope they're in it in the last quarter, because that even hasn't been the case. Certainly in the World Cup. Yeah, I was watching that after an England game, I think, or potentially after one of the quarterfinals, either Argentina, Wales, or England, Fiji. So could sort of scroll through Twitter as that was happening, and just the Irish having manufactured this Scotland talking themselves up to then jump on the manufactured.
That's genius to make a fan base do something they're not doing and say, why are you doing that?
Yeah. Great. It's great.
That's good. And there's our break. That's a good spot. Righto. Second part, Harry. We'll knock this out. 10 minutes or so.
Got.
Charlie, one of the topics we wanted to talk on, and we've had doing the podcast as we have been doing for this is our third year, new handle this year, but the great chats that we've been able to have with people, you just get insights into their preparations, and everyone keeps talking about chats that we had with Angus Gardner last year, and just learning about things that you just don't realise that they go through. And so we're fascinated to hear about your writing process. And so what does the days leading into Scotland, England, Murrayfield look like? How do you operate on game day? What's, are you punching out words on a keyboard during the game? Or are you sitting there scrubbing notes? Like how do you operate? I'm fascinated to hear this.
So I'll start with the game because I guess that's fresher in my mind. I can tell you it was frantic at Murrayfield because the Wi-Fi is not very good, not very reliable. So what I was on, so you can't get your laptop to work to have the game on as well. So you're reliant on what's going on. So first watch on the pitch, and then you're sort of spinning around for big moments or the big screen replays, because the immediate pressure for me, if I just take my day as an example, I was file Scotland player ratings on the whistle, which are a crock of shit because you need to watch the game about 2 or 3 times. Figure out who's played well. None of I think I caught a couple of Grant Gilchrist sort of counter ruck and was like, that was enough to say that he was really you're going, well, maybe he was sort of more. And actually I thought for the first watch, thought Darge was more effective than Dempsey and had to sort of switch them around later. But you're finding that on the whistle, so you can go as you can if the Wi-Fi allows. And then so for that was because the game was 4:45 kickoff, and it meant that also our first edition was going at sort of 8, I think. So the player ratings would be what got in the first edition, and then the second edition, which goes at 10:30, I was commissioned to do an analysis piece on, and it's a back and forth thing. You're talking, you've got a dialogue with an editor while you're doing this. So I was pushing for something on how understated good Finn Russell had been, so sort of using himself to be chased out by the blitz, and then just the accuracy of his kicking, and sort of before the game we thought oh well, he's shit or bust, Finn Russell, isn't he? But actually no, he was just totally calm. Anyway, I pitched that and got shouted down. They didn't want that. So it ended up being a piece on sort of the changes England can make, and I said, well, can the performances of the guys off the bench, George Martin, Faye or Boso, can that be used as a mandate for Steve Borthwick to accelerate this process? And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. Okay. I think that was 8:50. So you've sort of got between maybe 7:30 and I would have filed it at sort of 9:30. Sounds like a lot of words, but it's like it's like anything. If you've done it a lot, sometimes those deadlines can get very, very squeaky. But I tend to think that the on the whistle player ratings is my grimmest job, especially when it's a lot of effort for not a lot of reward. You're never going to get something fair play. You got all. That's what I was going to say.
It's a Charlie, what I love right on the siren, just for someone to go, what more's Russell got to do to get a 9?
And Charlie, what I love about the French ratings, L'Equipe especially, is how low they are. Even in a win, the French players get a 4 or a 5,
7.
And the way people talk about L'Equipe ratings as though they've watched it 5 times before they do them as well. It's like they're doing the same thing, guys.
They're filing on that.
The worst is, I hope that I've progressed since doing this. So I wouldn't do this again, but I wouldn't rule it out. I remember I won't say what game it was because it's just so village on my part, but I was watching a game sort of, and you're getting to sort of 10 minutes there and you're going around going, I honestly can't remember a single thing this guy has done. Really help me out.
I've definitely heard those discussions in the press box. Can anyone tell me what
Ollie Chesham did? So Charlie, do you have an idea in place when you are kind of, 20, 30 minutes in, and inform you as you're doing what I call your articles with pictures, where you're having the actual breaks and diagrams. And what I like about yours, by the way, is that they're not cherry picked. They seem to fit into a larger theme, and you're, I think, honest about it, and you make sure they fit. So do you get that working and watch for key areas, or do you kind of just go in virginally and just say, impress me?
When you do go, it's very rare that you go in with something and it comes off, I would say.
Right.
Because even as I said earlier, going into to Saturday thinking, well, we'll learn something about England. You're like, I'm not sure we really did learn loads. So you want something to, it was nice. What I would say I was kind of like punching the air or anything, but when Sione Tuipulotu fed Jones through and Scotland just found a way to break England's blitz, it was nice. Nice. It was kind of it was maybe nice for me, because the context of the week had been so sort of built up towards that, and you had Kevin Sinfield saying we've done our homework. You had guys sort of we'd flagged that they might have looked at that South Africa performance against Scotland in Marseille, and then on the Friday Finn Russell said, well, we've looked at it as well. So you're going, right. So that's something you can get into, and then you are thinking about general themes. So for instance, a really obvious one would have been Scotland's dominance, and whether there've been parallels to that, and maybe how they're going to show England what they haven't got. So it's a mix. But then if something, the stuff that does well, inverted commas, I guess, gets a lot of eyes on it, is big moments and things that can be really things that both absolute rugby tragics and people sort of who are just casually curious, both of them can sort of look into and maybe and hopefully if not understand more about it, look at it more carefully, because you've highlighted it.
One of the big things with Finn is, I think in Marseille, what the Box did is they left him alone, and they froze him by having all of his options outside of him closed off, which put Finn in a box. Are you going to be a runner carrier? Or you can sort of come at him and try to smash him and hit him 1 second late, half a second late, or hit him on time, which he seems to enjoy, actually. So you said, I think this time, that he was used as bait. Finn was bait this time, right?
Yeah, but they did that 2 years ago as well, in a different way. Do you remember Ben White's try? They hit up in midfield through Sam Johnson, and Finn Russell came around the corner, and actually they went back. It was Hogg hit the line and fed Darcy Graham. So they've done that. They just keep doing it. They just keep getting away with it. But it's just really clever coaching, isn't it? And it's almost what you'll never get on the record, I guess, about coaches, or very rare, and it's awesome when you do, is how much they think about the general narrative of a week, because I'm convinced that played into it. And I'm convinced that, because they're never going to go into a lot of detail about, I guess it's seen as sort of disrespectful to other teams. What you'll hear is, oh yeah, we're just concentrating on ourselves. That I just don't believe you. I don't believe them.
No. Are you trying to tell us you spent no time looking at the opposition? No.
Yeah. In the NBA, they talk a lot about, I'll make someone else beat me. Like, I won't let LeBron beat me. I'll just make sure I have triple coverage, and then someone's going to make a shot. So for me, Scotland seems fine with that. You take away this, someone else is going to step up.
Yeah. Blair Kinghorn had a bit
was good.
Yeah, but how big a boost is that, right? You've got a big strapping athlete who can also step up at first receiver, and if you leave him alone, you're absolutely screwed. So that's kind of that was what Russell's press conference before the game was awesome in a different way, and actually in a slightly understated way as well, because he got asked that. He said, I've got total confidence in other playmakers around me. Blair Kinghorn's coming back for us. That's massive. And then somebody said, are you surprised that they picked Furbank? And he went, yeah, that really surprised me. Yeah. And because if they go with, but he said that Furbank's a brilliant player. It's obvious that they're going to try and play a bit more. And they did, and it didn't work. But he's just very, take it. It's just really cool when players take it as you see it, and that informs, that helps you. That's great for a load of reasons, because you see a bit more personality, and also just it's really good to be more informed going into a game.
When you touch on
Go ahead.
when you touch on something like the post-match analysis that you did do, where you picked apart, well, this is why Scotland was so effective, and this is why they pulled their midfield apart. When you start something like that, how often do you find you ended it in maybe a different place to where you'd started or where you had intended to edit? Do you just get sort of swept through the narrative as you're writing it, or have you always got an end point in mind?
Yeah, you're in the I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm kind of painting really intricate portraits here, but when you're in the process of it, I guess you can get pulled. Yeah, you can get pulled different ways because you're noticing more and more different things, and that's why it's such a great sport to cover, right? Ultimate team sport. It's a sport about ripple effects, and whereby, as we were talking about Jamie Ritchie, probably idiots like me can't remember what I gave him. I think it was 7 because I was hedging my bets. But he would have had a huge influence on tiny things that make the bigger moments. That say for instance, he's slowed down a ruck and being coached away from it by a ref. And then England's shapes all over the place, and then his mate gets a jackal turnover. But it's Richie that, and maybe even knows himself. It's that tiny self-satisfaction that he's getting. But you'd hope that his coaches were also. But to answer your question, yeah, absolutely, it changes. But I guess you'd want to watch it at least twice to have a overarching theme, and then maybe you can go a little bit elsewhere with a theme. So, for instance, I don't think whether we've come onto this yet. I can't remember whether it was being recorded or not, but being asked to do a piece on England's options at number 8, and just how Ben Earl is kind of, he's almost taking it upon himself to put on a bit more weight and be a number 8 that I'm not sure he is. And it's interesting to see where England keep him like that and maybe ask him to be what he isn't quite, or they go, right, we need more carrying at 6, we need more carrying at 5 to help him out. So yeah, it's kind of you want to be as sure as you can, and you want to have enough evidence as you can before you start writing. But I think, I certainly wouldn't be. I'd be lying if I said that you're getting into things and that's why, to be honest, mate, that's why they end up so long. Those articles, covering all spaces, you're covering your own arse.
Be thankful for online editions. We have no such problems.
You have written quite a bit about the food intake of players. I mean, you were covering Danny Care's burgers and fries.
Yes,
and then I think earlier in the season you had really done a good job on uncovering why the Saints were at the top of the table, and they'd all gained a collective 3 or 4 kgs each. So is that you talking to the players, or are you talking to nutritionists, or how did you unearth all this dietary exclusivity?
That was what Danny gave a press conference last week, where he was sort of getting, not peppered, he's getting quizzed on sort of how's he got to 37 years old and 99 caps. Is it diet? And he was going, it is not diet. I'm renowned for having, and actually I was giggling away while he was saying this, because I remember a podcast where he got asked about his pre-match meal, and you were going, surely it's like chicken and rice and boring, and why are they even asked that question? He was going, sort of guiltily said, yes, Cocoa Pops, actually. So that was just really cool. I actually asked him off after that presser finished. I said, does anybody get annoyed at you because their metabolism isn't as good? Like, are you getting props going, what's that like? I don't eat that near me or whatever. So no, that was I guess Danny volunteered that, or somebody else kind of started the line of questioning. The Northampton thing I just found interesting because it was an extended pre-season for Premiership clubs, and they've just looked tougher. They've just looked tougher in contact across the board, and a couple of their young backs coming through had volunteered that they'd put on a bit of weight. And you hear that a lot. Tommy Freeman's a great example, right? Because he wasn't picked up by Leicester initially because he was too small, had a growth spurt, so he was quite gangly, and then put on, and then he's kind of gradually had to put on size. But it was really interesting. So the kind of key interview for the Saints piece spoke to the player, spoke to George Furbank for it, spoke to Phil Dowson, who's their DOR, who sort of explained why they wanted to do it, the why of it, and then the how of it was Tommy Bullock, who's their head of conditioning or head of athletic performance. And he said that it was, he gave the detail of whatever it was, 8 to 10 lifting sessions a week, and capped running fewer skills sessions when they'd be a club that would pride themselves on moving the ball and having that high skill base. Right. It just eight lifting sessions, and that was really interesting. And you get nervous when you get that feedback from some sort of S&C professionals going, that is a lot. Like, are they? Yeah. They had the long preseason, and B, they were always wary of the soft tissue injuries that could occur, and the third thing was that they were wary of the running that they would have to eventually do, because they're a sort of they don't play unlike Scotland. Ironically, they kick a fair bit, but when they're quite elaborate and intricate with the phase play that they do get.
Yeah, right. It's fascinating. It's fascinating, and this is exactly the sort of thing we were hoping to get from you, Charlie. Thanks. Like, we could keep firing questions at you for another hour comfortably, but I'm sure you've got things to do on a Monday morning in London. I'm sure Harry's got things to do on a Monday morning at St Andrews. Thanks so much for giving us some time for a chat. It's been thoroughly engrossing to hear not just your insights in what you saw in a game, but how you operate and how you, as writers ourselves, that was probably the one bit we wanted to come out of this tonight, wasn't it, Harry?
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how someone builds it. And Charlie, and I know you have a podcast to do with another guy named Charles, so we'll let you go. But great, brilliant chat, and hopefully you can come back soon.
Oh no, that's really humbling to be on, given the guests you've had, and good luck with this, because it's a lot of fun.
Cheers.
And we are going again. This is the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And, mate, that was a great chat with one of the very best rugby writers going. To have Charlie Morgan on the pod, that was just fantastic.
Honest guy, writes with a scalpel, but was also good fun to have him here and just, kind of let the guard down and have a good chat. I like that he's descended from 4 of the 6 nations too. So he really has a heart in every one of them.
As soon as he said that, I just had visions of him turning up to a rugby game with just one of those old school Harlequin jerseys on, red, blue, white, green, everything. So fantastic to have Charlie, and you can find him on the social medias at Charlie Felix on Twitter, and you'll certainly find his work at the Telegraph every day, pretty much. One little change we have made this year is we dedicate a little chunk of time after our guests to have a bit of a meander, a bit of a chat through the various competitions around the world, touching on the major talking points as we go through them. And we're very much in Six Nations mode now, mate. And I think there's a point to be made about France, and they're just sort of still middling their way through. Would that be fair to say?
The coach has no clothes. I don't think that the players are really loving playing for him. They're a little bit flaccid. I think they seem bitter at times. But they're not really playing to their. I'm not sure they're fit. I don't know. There's just something going on there that's really not right. I do think that there's not a team out there that's fallen as far as quickly from, say, October of last year to where it is in France. And so there's a lot of talk in France about Sean Edwards, Fabien Galtier.
Well, that's where I was going to say this sort of thing in France really only ends one way, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's not going to be the players. I mean, you look at the team sheet. There's plenty of talent there.
No, and there's plenty of other coaches available too. So, I wonder if Fabien might get the tap on the shoulder sometime soon this year. We'll see. The Wales turnaround was short-lived. I mean, they were really good round one, but they just looked a bit ordinary, losing 31-7 to Ireland, didn't they?
I mean, there's no shame in losing 31-7 to Ireland when you have that few caps on the field. It's interesting at Murrayfield, outside Murrayfield, before the game, they have sort of a big screen. It's a median screen, actually, outside. And there was a whole field, I don't know, 6,000-7,000 people watching that match. And for a time, it looked like it might have been a little bit close. But Ireland has depth plenty. They can just keep running people at you now. So it's interesting because Warren Gatlin's returns are very poor, but he's in no danger. And I would say that he almost is walking away from these 3 losses feeling fine. So
and probably thinking, I told you it was going to be hard.
Yeah, he's in Division 2, Wales, Italy, and France. And if he can nip Italy, then he's fine. Yeah,
he'll be fine. Round 4 is played the weekend of March 9 and 10. The table, as it currently stands, has Ireland on top by a long way on. What are they on? 15 points. Scotland second on 9. England 8. France 6. Wales 3. Italy 3 as well. And yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. Super Rugby Pacific kicked off on the weekend, just gone. I mean, as far as season opening games go, Chiefs Crusaders in Hamilton was just a ripping contest, wasn't it?
That's so good. Don't kick to Damien McKenzie in space. And Sean Stevenson just looks like otherworldly sometimes.
Yeah, Sean Maloney has always said, and I've often heard him say it in commentary, whatever you do on a Friday night, do not miss the 5:30 New Zealand game. And that was the case. Like Chiefs Crusaders was just an absolute ripper. The Hurricanes were a lot. I'm just going to say that to myself now. Here he is, coming back. Hi, remember me?
Hey, you were just saying Hurricanes.
The Hurricanes played the late game in Perth, and I must admit they were a lot better than I expected. I thought they might have come back to the pack a little bit, but is the prize packet harsh? Well,
maybe they're very balanced. I would say that a lot of power, a lot of speed. But it's hard to know how good the Force were. The Force had a lot of signings, but they did not look that good.
No, the Force were disappointing. I honestly thought they would be they would give a much better account in that contest. But then I can't toss up now whether the Force or the Waratahs were actually more disappointing, because I expected more of both teams. So it's a bit of a toss up there. I think the Brumbies and Reds very clearly remain the Australian standard. The Brumbies
just look like the Brumbies that always look like, which is a well-coached team with a clear work on. I mean, we chatted with Laurie Fisher on Twitter, and he was talking about missed tackles and such, but that's correctable. I mean, they were arriving at ruck on time. They were switching the ball well. They played in the right territories. Yeah, the Brumbies remain the class standard.
Yeah. The ladder looks funny. There's 5 teams with bonus point wins, and then the Chiefs, with just the normal garden variety win, are in 6th on 4 points. And then,
they look scary.
They do. 5 points on 0 as well. The Super Round is in Melbourne this weekend coming, and one of these years Super Rugby Pacific is going to do the Super Round really, really well, but I fear that it won't be this weekend, unfortunately. It kicks off with Moana Pacifica and the Rebels on Friday evening. Waratahs Highlanders is this Friday night game, and then on Saturday, I've gone ahead around. Highlanders Blues kicks things off on Friday night. Rebels Force is the second game, and then Saturday we see Moana Pacifica and the Fijian Indrua, which could be a ripping contest. Like that could be 15-12, or it could be 45-43. It could be anything, that game. Crusaders Waratahs is Saturday night, and then on Sundays, Chiefs Brumbies, Hurricanes Reds. You wouldn't want to be having to scramble to make a flight on Sunday afternoon. That's 2 really good games.
Yeah, I'm really happy Super Rugby is back. I love the contrast between some of these matches, and long may it continue.
Yeah, there definitely is contrast. There's no doubt about that. League One in Japan, the Mitsubishi Dynaboars, Matt To'omua's team, have joined the mid-table pack of 5 or 6 teams after a 53-45 win over the Shizuoka Blue Revs. They're the team formerly known as Yamaha. Next weekend, they play the Kubota Spears, which I'm pretty sure is Bernard Foley's team. And the Kiboko Kobe Steelers play Toyota Fablitz, which means that now those mid-table pack teams are playing each other. So they're going to start taking points off each other, which is interesting. In France, Racing 92 went down to Stade Francais 27-12 in Paris. Cast thumped Bordeaux 41-12. That was 3rd against 4th. And then 9th place La Rochelle went down to 12th place Permignon 27-15. La Rochelle now are 15 points behind Stade on top of the table. And
La Rochelle is just playing in the European competitions now. They just
feels like it, doesn't it?
given up on top 14.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that. The reigning, they won the double last year, didn't they? So yeah, we see how they go. The URC, the ERC, is back this weekend. Coming, as we mentioned last weekend, there's only one win separating Benetton in 4th and Connaught in 10th, which is crazy talk.
Jake White tries to finally beat the Stormers at the Loftus Abattoir, the bogey team.
He's not had a good record against the Stormers, has he?
In the ERC, never. They never won. The Bulls have never won.
No, I'm not sure he had a great record against the Stormers, even in Super Rugby, with whichever team he was in charge of at the time.
Too quick, too smart, too handsome.
Don't forget too humble.
It's not a word that's associated with me. Sorry.
Yeah, no, nor the Western Cape in general. Break. And we're back for the final bit. Some news of the last 7 days, mate. Courtney Laws will end his long association with the Northampton Saints, making a big money move to Brive in the Pro de Tour for the 24-25 season. The former England forward retired from international rugby after the semi-final defeat in the World Cup. He's played for Northampton for 17 years, which is incredible. And he said himself, it's going to be weird not running out in a Saints jersey, but bit hard to knock down a reported deal of £360,000 a year to play Division 2 in France.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. He's earned superannuation, no question about that. Australian captain Charlotte Caslick became the first woman to appear in 50 HSBC Sevens tournaments in Vancouver over the weekend. She was obviously part of that gold medal winning Australian side at Rio in 2016, made a debut at the end of the circuit's inaugural season in 2013. She's very much one of the faces of international sevens. She's only missed 6 tournaments in 11 seasons since then, which is quite incredible. But the Australian women lost the semi-final to France, a surprise loss there. And then France went down to New Zealand in the women's final in Vancouver. In the men's final, Argentina are just the form team of the seventh circuit at the moment. So they've won that's their third win in 4 cup finals. They beat New Zealand 36-12, beg your pardon, on Sunday. They lost the final in Dubai to South Africa in the first leg. And then they won 3 on the trot. So they won in Cape Town, 1 in Perth, and this was the first time. They are now the first team to win 3 straight times in Vancouver. It's never been done before. So, that's an incredible effort. Michael Hooper was in Vancouver with the Australian team, and he's very much on track to play at LA this weekend, which gives him his first taste of sevens rugby. Anton Dupont, the other star, if you like, switching numbers. He's not switching codes. What do you call that? Downgrading? I don't know. He scored his first sevens try.
Practice drills.
Yeah. Incredible try. Scored against Australia, funnily enough. Came off the bench for the first 2 games and then started on day 2 against Australia and then just decided to carve them up, which is, bloody fantastic, isn't it? Potential All Blacks captain Scott Barrett has called these revolutionary new smart mouthguard concussion technology a step too far, which is interesting to see whether it comes back from that. It's about the way Anton Linnett-Brown and Quentin Strange were both a bit surprised to be taken off for HIA, but there's maybe there's maybe an answer to this. Jamie Wall wrote on Sunday that it looks like it might have been a bit of a dodgy Bluetooth connection, might have taken too long to delay. The data was right, but there was too long a delay in getting the data to the pitch side doctors, and that's why it took them, 2, 3, 4 minutes to drag the players off. So, we'll see what more comes of that.
Well, the same thing happened in the Calcutta Cup. Xander Ferguson was sent off for the mouthguard thing. I think there's a certain religiosity almost going on here where if you question anything that is brought in to make players safer, then you're put in some kind of hot seat of like, you don't care. But in fact, it's really important to players, and I think fans as well, but to the players, not to be dragged off for something that is mystifying. So if it's a smart mouth guard, it needs to actually be smart. If it's a dumb mouth guard, then it's no good. So we might be in between right now. It's average intelligence mouth guard, and we need to do a little bit better. Yeah.
It's very stable genius mouth guard. Anton Linder-Brown was walking off saying, I didn't even get hit on the head. And because he got taken off with about 3 minutes to go, he never had a chance to pass his HIA and go back on.
It's not a good look. And I mean, look, you could be whiplash without being hit on the head, but I do think there's things to work out, and let's not be too guinea pig on this.
No, that's a fair point. There was some good news for the Waratahs over the weekend. That was that Lalakai Fekete was out of hospital and at home watching the game on Saturday night. He was hospitalised last Thursday after hurting his neck at training, and there was worries that he initially might have had some major spinal damage, but that was all very much cleared. Looks like he suffered some ligament damage to the back of his neck, and the Tars are even saying he could actually be back training like in a very much light duties way in a neck brace, maybe even this week coming. So we'll see how that goes. Away from the news, mate, a little bit of news on my front. It didn't quite happen in time for me to mention it last week in episode 2, but I have now kicked off writing a weekly Australian column for Rugby Pass, which I'm very excited about. That'll be up Tuesdays, Wednesdays, whenever it goes. I haven't quite worked it out yet, but that's very, very cool. And it's my thanks to Owen Jones, friend of the pod, who said, hey, do you want to come and do this for me? So very much excited for that and for that. Excellent, man. I'm proud of you. And I know it's probably a technical gig. You have to get everything just right, the font, the spacing. I'm sure you'll nail it. Your first article was a cracker too. Everyone get on there and read it. Thank you. I appreciate that. But, mate, I think that is us done for another episode of the 8-9 combo. Give me your rating for episode 3, please.
8.5, but if I listen to it 2 more times like Charlie Morgan, maybe I'll go up to a 9.
Oh, what's he got to do to get a 9.5?
Hey, are we doing no, he was a 10, but us.
Was 10. We got.
But are we doing followers of the week or no?
We will in just a second. We will.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
After we say thanks to all of you out there in the rugby pod world who have found us. If you are new to our work, then welcome. And if you know us from the last few years, then we say thank you for following us over here. And speaking of following, the pod is on all the socials at 8-9combo on Twitter, on Insta, on YouTube, where you can find video versions of the podcast every week, except last week where we had some audio issues, and so that's not there. And now on TikTok as well. There's some funny things happening over there that I don't fully understand, but you're in charge of. So
good on rate you. us, and if you've rated us before, rate us again, because we were on a different platform before, and we had
ratings didn't follow over, so we are starting. We had
dozens and dozens, 100 ratings. So come and rate us again. Yeah,
they are starting to flow in on Spotify and Apple. I can see. So wherever you are, give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, interact with the podcast directly, but also importantly, rate and share. And yes, do rating if you can. And if you are listening on Spotify, be sure to tell us and everyone who finds the episode after you what you thought. There's a Q&A built into the episode in the Spotify player. So it's been great to hear what people have thought already. So if you're listening to us on Spotify, make sure you do that. Followers of the week. Each week, we are going to pick our favorite new followers amongst our upwards of 300 Twitter followers now, which has been great. So make sure you smash the follow button. Who have you picked this week?
The generous and wise Graham Peacock, whose name probably sounds to you rather Scottish. He's actually a South African guy. Yes. And he has a habit of giving really incredible and hard to get tickets to worthy people. So
that's cool.
This week he really made someone very happy. And so Graham, you're a good man. Thanks for following us.
No, that's great. I'm going to single out New Zealand broadcaster and friend of the pod, Martin Devlin, who I had a chat to on his show last week, and we'll get him back on the pod at some point because he's too good a man not to. But that's cool. So make sure you follow us if you haven't already, and you never know, you might get a mention. You might get a mention next week. Chart wise, we mentioned this last week. Straight very much back in at our level. We were into the top 5 in Australia for a few days this week. We debuted at number 1 in Singapore, at number 3 in Japan, at number 4 in Canada. We've been top 10 in the US and South Africa this last week, the top 20 in the UK and New Zealand. And we're really excited about this. We're into the top 20 on the Australian Sport podcast charts on Spotify and into the top 200 Australian all podcast charts over the weekend, which is hugely, hugely exciting for us. So if you are listening to us on Spotify again, make sure you give us a real solid rating, because that's all helping us. Harry and I remain on the socials in our usual places, at Harry Baldy Jones and at BMC Sport. Again, please do like, follow, subscribe on your pod platform of choice and on YouTube as well. And make sure you get every new episode as soon as it drops. This is the 8-9 combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones. We're back in your ears next week.
Come play with us. Great episode.
That was the sound of golf ball in the window.
Substantive.
Very substantive. Stop recording.